All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Serious Angler Network Tuesday Night Live. And you will notice, first of all, that we are Bailey-less tonight. And it is I, the captain, Andrew Full, joined by our Business from the Bass Boat host, Adam Deacon. And as always, Tuesday Night Live is powered by X2 Power. And man, this is kind of wild. I don't think I've hosted one in probably almost a year. It's kind of weird to be Bailey-less, but Adam, thanks for joining. And how are things over there in the Pacific Northwest?
Man, things are good, Andy. You're doing great. You're doing great hosting, running the show from the catbird seat. No, man, things are really good. Happy to be here and help on the Serious Angler side of things. The Pacific Northwest it's been Pacific Northwesty, rainy and cold, a little bit of snow mixed in, and it's been some nice days too. But it's just been cool learning these lakes, man. Like I haven't spent any time except for this year and a couple tournaments, I guess, here and there running Northwest. But it's they're really unique. They're really cool. They're just they've got some really big fish in them and just not a ton of pressure. So as far as for bass fishing goes, it's a pretty cool place to be.
Doing a bunch of cricket tickling up there, having
I have been, man. I've been cricket tickling all winter. No doubt about it. That is it's a great way. Great terminology from our buddy Clint Bartlett.
What a good show with him, right?
Yeah, man. Great show with Clint. If you haven't checked out on Business from the Bass Boat, just talking about the grind of the photography, videography world for the guys that are chasing around these professional anglers all across the country. It's not all it's caked up to be. It's a lot of work. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, absolutely. So, but anyways, we have an awesome show tonight, right? We have reigning AOY Matt Becker coming on from the BPT. But before we bring him in here, I have a question for you, Adam. Have you downloaded the new Omnia, like updated the Omnia app onto your phone?
I have not updated it.
Okay. So for those who are premium pro members, let's see if I can get this fixed here. I don't know how Bailey does everything. Well, I just ruined everything. So.
Zoomed it in.
Yeah, good. I don't know what I'm doing. But there's a premium pro QR code, and I'm not sure how he adjusts all these layers. Maybe it's this one. There it is. It's figuring it out. But Omnia just launched a new app update, and there's all kinds of new layers that are included in the app, including like boat launch pins, weather, storm cells, like hail and lightning. So it's something, if you're not a premium pro member, you may want to go over and check that out. You can scan the QR code if you're watching on YouTube and go over there, download it. All kinds of sweet perks with it. Today it ends, unfortunately, but rods, reels, and a couple other things for 20% off. Save 10% on all your purchases. You get free shipping on orders. You get all kinds of exclusive deals in your emails, which I love because usually it's like Daiwa reels and stuff, and always have to hop on that. But yeah, you get some really neat information on the Premium Pro. Everyone who tunes in on a weekly basis hears us talk about it. Make sure you're not missing out, and you get money back every time you buy products. So it's a good way to live by. So, but yeah, I just wanted to talk about that real fast. And should we get Matt on here and talk about his hot start to the 2024 season?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Just rolling right into 2024 with absolutely guns blazing, just like 2023. So it's
awesome.
Great to watch.
And he's another northern guy taking over like bass fishing, which is even better, right? Hey, Matt, how's it going?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Can't complain, man.
Yeah, I heard that. Hey, I got a question right off the rip. What the heck is cricket tickling?
Oh, Adam, go ahead.
Let's go. No, well, we've just, I mean, there's no secret about it. As of right now, we're talking end of February 2024. Right, the talk has been forward-facing sonar, but more specifically, in my eyes, we've been talking about this. It's been a trend for a little while, but I feel like it's just really caught fire because all the derbies covered here lately have been jig head and a minnow, right?
Yeah.
Mid strolling, whatever you want to call it. So on a show, it was a fantasy fishing show. We were just going back and forth, joking around. And we came up with, Clint really is the one who brought it up in the comments. We need a new term for this, right? Like, okay, what can we call this? Like, we don't want to call it something lame. And we called it cricket tickling because, you look at your live scope and you're like, where's my cricket? And then you're just tickling it right there. So that's where it all started.
I got you. That makes a little more sense now. I was like, what the heck is he talking? Is he like fly fishing? Is he throwing a little cricket? Like, what is he talking about? So
it's just a fancy way to say you're swimming a minnow in the middle of the water column. So
you're doing the little shake and bake.
Yeah, man.
That's
so
funny.
Speaking of like shaking and baking, right? Anthony Geist, like right off the hop, we have an awesome fan question. He says, "You look like a Meatloaf fan," and he wants to know what your favorite song to blast on the road is.
Is that related? I mean, is Meatloaf and is the type of
there's
music?
a band Meatloaf. No, he's talking about Meatloaf. That's totally what he's
the band,
about.
yeah.
Oh, I have no idea what that is. I'm thinking food. I mean, our favorite restaurant here in town has a pretty good meatloaf. So like, yeah, I'm a Meatloaf fan, but I have no idea what he's talking about music wise. I'm really not into a whole lot of music. I'm more into the podcast, the educational side whenever I'm driving and always trying to listen and learn stuff, use that time, I guess, wisely, so I'm a podcast guy.
Fair enough. I thought that was funny because Meatloaf, I had a neighbor like 5 or 6, probably 15, 16 years ago. Now time flies by, right? And he loved to jam to Meatloaf. And I'm just like, that's a hysterical question. Just to like come right off the hopper.
Yep. But, coming out strong with the questions. I like it. Keep them coming.
And speaking about coming out strong, right? 2024, hot start. 2 top 10s, a top 20 in the Invitational of Big Sam. Like, what do you think has caused the hot start for you this year on the BPT and the Toyota Series, seeing as the Invitational, is a 5-fish limit, and BPT switched completely from last year to every fish counts again?
Yeah, heading into Toledo Bend, like I felt a little rusty and just a little like stressed just because everything got delayed for me. I mean, as usual, every bass fisherman, professional bass fisherman will cry the blues. I mean, it doesn't matter. We have the tournament schedule in September probably, and it's literally the last couple days leading up till the tournament before everything comes together and get wrap and boat ready and everything. So literally like I was running around like a madman the 2 weeks prior to Toledo Bend. So like I felt rusty. I wasn't out fishing all the time. Like I didn't feel like I was in the tournament groove. So I was a little concerned heading into that one, but luckily it fit my strengths well. It was a forward facing sonar tournament, straight up live scoping Demiki rig, tickling crickets.
Nice. Yeah, now we're talking.
And so, I felt comfortable and, I made a good decision to start the year and start in this one creek. And it really just caught a bunch of fish and just kind of felt like we were right back on the train from last year and never missed a beat. So, I definitely could have seen that going the other way. I mean, if I didn't have a fast start in that tournament, I could have seen how it could have went the other way pretty quick just because I had those feelings of just being rusty heading into that tournament. But obviously, once you have a good tournament, your confidence is back. Everything's just rolling. And we literally went straight from championship round at Toledo Bend straight over to Sam Rayburn, and practice started the next day and just kept rolling into that and had another good tournament there. And then that just snowballed into Santi Cooper last week.
And Santi Cooper was not forward-facing fishing, but we'll talk on that in a second, right? So I'm curious, like when you're out there throwing the minnow around, I know you're a Yamamoto guy, right? So are you a scope shad, the 3-inch scope shad guy? And can you like talk about the jig head maybe that you're using with that and your overall setup?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many baits out now and, a lot of different things. But to me, I mean, it's all imitating the same thing. You're just looking for a 2.5 to 4-inch minnow style bait. So the biggest key that I want is a tail that sits this way rather than this way. So that's what I want on my bait is the tail sitting flat. And that's what the Yamamoto scope shad does. So that's probably my number one most used bait is the 3-inch Yamamoto scope shad. They got all the good fish catching colors. I got a couple exclusive colors with Fish USA. The Becker's grape juice is like a perfect purple alewife imitating color. I mean, it is just money in that clear water that they feed on alewives. So I've been using a lot of that color, throughout the winter and fall. But as far as jig heads, I've tried them all. I've tried so many different things with them, using like the flat ones, the ones with lips on it and everything. For me, the best that I have found is just a straight up ball head jig head. I really like just the Kitech tungsten ball head with, I have a bunch of different sizes, and I like the 1/0, 2/0, and 3/0 hook size, just depending on what bait you're using. But for that scope shad, I like the 2/0 size. That's probably my most used size. Is that, I would say 1/4 ounce 2/0 is probably the most common jig head that I use for that technique. But another good one is the Queen's Tackle sonar head. Those are pretty much the two heads that I use for that technique. Just kind of switch it up based on weight. And then the Queen's Tackle one has a little bit bigger hook in it. So if you're using a bigger bait or something, that's probably the head I go for.
And I might be wrong here, but the Queen Tackle head is shiny, and the Kitech one's like a dull green pumpkin black color, right? So like, does that play a difference in like what bait you're choosing to pair with it as well?
Not so much the bait, but I definitely play around with that on cloudy versus sunny days for sure. I haven't had enough information or data, bite ratio, that kind of stuff with it to really put anything together yet. But I'm definitely something that I play with because, that Queen's Tackle head is very shiny. So if that's rolling down there, it's going to flash. And, I haven't figured out if the flash is good or bad yet. So I'm just kind of still playing around with that and figuring out what's better for what situation.
Sure. Now, one question I have on both of those heads, they have a very small bait keeper, right? I mean, the Queen Tackle has literally that one little barb. The Kitech is a really thin barrel, some tungsten, right?
Yeah.
Coming back through. How are you keeping these baits on? Are you a super glue guy? Are you running through a lot of baits? What's your take there?
I'm a super glue guy, big time. I mean, I love my super glue. I use the Gorilla Glue stuff. Man, I've tried to get them to sponsor me, and I keep trying and trying. Like I'm telling them, like, I know I can sell a bunch of Gorilla Glue for you, but
no joke.
I am 100% a Gorilla Glue guy. I super glue everything. I mean, to me, it's all about efficiency. Like I do not want to waste time having to re-rig my bait. I'm going to super glue that thing on there. That way, whenever that bait gets completely tore up, that head is probably still glued to the jig head. And, you're due for a new bait by the time that head pulls off the jig head. So 100% I'm a super glue guy. I glue everything.
And it's only Gorilla Glue. Have you ever tried like the blue or red label Loctite super glue?
I've used them all. So the deal with the Gorilla Glue is in the cap, there's a needle that goes through the spout. So every time you close it, it makes sure that that's clean. And, the most frustrating thing is whenever you use a thing of super glue and you go to open the next time and you can't get it open or it's just globbed up on top. So that's what I settled into the Gorilla Glue, just because the cap has that needle in it. So every time you open it, it's going to work.
Oh, that's good.
No doubt. I mean, another going to your point on efficiency, I think something that I've been toying around with and thinking through on these type of tournaments, jig head, minnow stuff. What is your take on leader size as far as what you're putting in front of that fish? Are you a heavier guy and trying to be efficient and getting these fish in the boat as fast as you can? Do you feel like you need to come down? What's your take on leader line?
I mix it up. So like Toledo Bend, for instance, Koya just won fishing that technique, and he was using really heavy line, and that was more so to keep the bait higher. So that's kind of what I've been messing with. I'll drop down the 6-pound line if the water's really clear. Like I went out to the U.S. Open in the fall, catching the smallmouth at Lake Mojave, and they were super pressured, super hard to bite. So I was dropping down to 6-pound leader line for that. I would say the bulk of the time I'm sticking with 8 or 10. But Toledo Bend, for instance, all that timber around, the water was a little bit more stained. So I upped to 12-pound line for, being around that heavier cover. And then the fish were very high in the water column. So they were, less than 10 feet from the surface. So I didn't have to worry about that line drag, keeping my bait high in the water column because I wanted to keep it up there anyway. So, that all of those things kind of factor into it. But Seagar is so strong and thin to begin with, 8 and 10-pound tatsu. I mean, it's pretty strong stuff. So I feel confident with that pretty much anywhere. And, I'd rather use lighter line than heavier line, but that's just me personally.
I like it.
Well, and I feel like I wonder too, something that like I haven't messed around with the super lightweights yet as far as like on the jig head goes. I really like how on the Kitech, for instance, you can go to like a 1/16 or a 1/8 with still a 2/0 or a 3/0 hook in it. Like that's hard to find in a lot of situations. Have you messed with the super light stuff at all? And in that case, like, do you see, just thinking through line size, right? Like say you are using 15-pound line, does that mean you can then like you're now going to 3/16 or 1/4 ounce because it's going to maybe stay a little higher than if you were to use a 16th ounce and 8-pound, or you know what I mean, as far as any takes there?
For sure. I mean, I definitely like using the lightest jig head possible. So I have them from a 16th all the way up to like a 1/2 ounce,
Okay.
and just depending on the depth they're in. And the lighter the jig head, the more natural or more action that bait's going to have. So, it takes, you have to be more patient. It takes some time for that bait to sink and to act right. But definitely the lighter the jig head, the better it's going to look and more natural it's going to look in the water. And, as those fish get more and more pressure, that you're going to have to tweak those little things and get more finesse with them. So, I mean, it won't be long till we're out there weightless, twitching the minnow weightless, just letting it flutter down to them. So, I mean, that's the direction we're heading. So it's pretty crazy to think about.
The heads are turning now, right, with all the forward-facing sonar. If you're fishing over 70 foot of water weightless with like a 3-inch scope shad, I'm sure a lot of heads are going to turn.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Japanese guys have been fishing like that with the the Yamatanuki style baits. I mean, they're taking 10, 15-minute casts. So it's the same sort of thing. I mean, that's just the way we're heading. So as the fish get more pressured, you gotta think of new things to trick them.
Yeah. As I wonder, like in the future, how much the pressure is going to change the way these fish adapt to the anglers. And if all of a sudden you're in like 4 or 5 years, you're going to see this resurgence of people like going shallow when they shouldn't be shallow. Or because there's always fish there, but is it going to make a mass population of bass completely change what they do because they're basically being preyed on by us humans with forward-facing sonar?
For sure.
Time.
I mean, they're always going to win. So Mother Nature is always going to win. We can't do anything to hurt Mother Nature. So they're going to adjust. They're going to move. Something's going to happen, and they will figure out real quick that maybe the middle of the lake isn't quite as safe as it used to be. So they're going to go tuck up under some trees or get in some grass or something once they realize that they're not as acceptable in the grass or whatever it may be. But it's crazy to think about how the times are going. But even in shallow water now, you just seen it like Okeechobee in the open with Scott Martin. Like, the technology isn't just for deep open water. I mean, you can use it shallow and 2 or 3 foot of water. So it's the technology's here and it's not going anywhere. And it's it helps you catch a bass from the bank all the way across to the other bank. It doesn't matter.
That's a great point. So I want to get back on track here and talking about like the Bass Pro Tour and everything, right? Instead of just talking forward sonar baits and etc. But now that the Bass Pro Tour has gone back to every fish counts essentially, besides like the minimum weight size of fish, have you had to change your fishing style at all? And are there any like major adjustments that you've changed in your fishing game to improve more since winning AOY last year?
That's a loaded question. I mean, so we've fished 2
apologize.
events so far this year with the every fish counts format, and I would say no, I did not like practice any different or fish the tournament any different. I mean, to me, my style in every tournament has always been, find an area with a bunch of fish and just catch as many as you can and see what your 5 biggest weigh at the end of the day. So I've kind of taken that same approach into the every fish counts, but now everyone I catch over, 2 pounds or 1.8 or whatever the minimum is that week, that one's going to count towards my daily total. So haven't really changed anything there. I would say, maybe, the bait selection would change a little bit. For instance, at like Toledo Bend, if I was just fishing for 5 and I needed like an 8 or 9 pounder, I could, throw a bigger swim bait or something and kind of commit an hour or 2 of my day to that to look for that kicker. But, other than that, I mean, Santi Cooper, for instance, I mean, our practice was so tough. It wasn't like you could go somewhere and get a lot of bites, but have to do this to catch big ones. It was like, you're only going to get 5 to 10 bites a day and they're all going to be big. So, you're not going to do anything different in that tournament. So it was, so far I haven't really had to adjust. Maybe, the only one I'm really worried about on the schedule this year would be the St. Lawrence River. So that's a place where typically, you make a long run and you get 7 to 10 bites a day, and they're between 3 and 5 pounds, and you weigh your 20 plus pounds of smallmouth. But it's also a place where you could go catch 32 to 3 pound largemouth. And that's going to be ahead of those guys targeting those bigger smallmouth, or even targeting, smaller smallmouth. So that's the one I think that it's going to take some strategy and, really trying to play the format. And, but we're a long ways from that. So we'll kind of figure that out as it gets closer.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Anthony Geist is coming in with another really good question. He doesn't want you to give up too much juice, but I think this kind of goes into the adjustment question. Have you had to manage your fish and spots differently now that it's every fish counts as opposed to just catching your best 5 every day?
Yes. So the Bass Pro Tour format is so unique. It's like no other tournament trail right now with the qualifying rounds, then the weight 0, and then you have a knockout round, and then the weight 0 again, and then you have a 1-day shootout, top 10 1-day shootout for all the marbles. So what I've learned, basically you spend your practice period, the 2.5 days of practice we get, really just trying to find fish for that qualifying round. And, for me, I like to – ideal situation is you catch them good enough the first day of qualifying that you can kind of back off your stuff the second day and kind of expand and practice a little bit and find some fresh fish heading into the knockout round and then into the championship round. So that's kind of my strategy or game plan heading into each Bass Pro Tour tournament. But some places it's just so tough, like Santi Cooper. I mean, it was such a tough fishery that I couldn't really lay off anything or catch them good enough to separate myself from the field. I had a great first day, but still I needed to catch some fish the second day in order to make the top 10 to make the knockout round. So, but yeah, I mean, that strategy is, that's crucial. And that's how you win the tournaments is you gotta manage your fish well and continue to find more fish as the tournament goes on, because things change so much. The tournament's so long. We're literally there for 9 days from the time practice starts till the last day of the tournament. So like
a marathon.
Yeah. I mean, things change so much. So the more you can stay on top of them, the better you're going to do, by the end of the tournament.
So, all right. So, I guess I want to move into social media and chatting about that. You do a really good job at being creative while practicing for tournaments and staying on top of it. That's a huge emphasis now for sponsors and marketing deals, etc. So how do you stay active while you're practicing and all the distractions going on? And also, how did you feel about slinging that prop blade 50 feet in the air as you're running down Sandy?
Dude, that I saw that was absolute. I've never seen any, you hear about people slinging blades, but it's that was wild.
I know, that's pretty crazy. And that was the first for me to see it. Like I've slung a few blades every year the last few years, but I felt a little vibration or heard a noise or something. Cause if you see, like, I look back and the official, like, he like looks back, he flinched a little bit, but then I look around again and I just see that prop blade just flying like 50 feet up in the air. And like, as I'm looking at it, it's like boomeranging towards me. So like it's coming back towards us. If you watch the video, you'll see from the time it flies off, there's like a couple seconds pass by and we go past a tree. The prop blade literally landed on that tree. Like it hit that tree on the way down. So like it was coming towards us still. So like that was kind of going through my mind. I was like, I can't let off this till I get like away from this prop blade, because that's the last thing I want. But
the boat's shaking like
it's shaking and making some weird noises like crazy. But thankfully, so that happened right after lines out. So we were actually like, tournament was over. We packed up our stuff. We kind of hung out for a second, got some snacks. Like we had like a 30-minute boat ride back. So we're like, all right, let's get settled in. And we were going to ride back to the takeoff, and they have kind of the trophy ceremony and watch party and everything. And we got like maybe 2 miles, probably not even 2 miles, 1.5 miles. And that blade threw off. And then once I come down off a pad, I couldn't even get back up on pad because the prop was completely destroyed. So I had to just idle to a ramp. And luckily Brittany had the truck, but it was an hour driving the truck. So she was at the ramp waiting. So it was an hour there to pick me up and then an hour back. So by the time we got back, it was dark and everyone was gone. So we didn't even get to hang out at the trophy ceremony and see all the fans and everything. So that was a little bit of a bummer. But on the social media side of things, like, I got to give a lot of the credit to Brittany. I mean, she handles all that. That's basically her full-time job now, is just help me with social media, YouTube editing. That's literally what she's doing right now, is editing up the videos from Santi Cooper. So she takes a lot of that stress off of me and handles a lot of that. And then, the other crucial thing is we put it on the calendar. Like, we schedule in media day, content days, where we'll either, shoot a bunch of videos in the garage or, go on the water and do a bunch of content. That way we have stuff in the camera roll, in the bank roll, ready to post whenever, I'm at a tournament or something where I can't, just jump on it and shoot the video right then. That way we have some stuff in the bank and make sure that we, checking all the boxes for the sponsors, because that's the most important thing, is keeping the sponsors happy. And we try and make sure that we always do everything we're supposed to do, and then a little more, just to keep the sponsors happy.
Absolutely.
Dude, that is some juice advice, as far as that's something that I think anyone, angler, podcast hosts, like, scheduling those days for content in advance of, like, because you can never have enough content, and it's really hard to be consistent. I mean, even posting on social, right? Of like daily, weekly, whatever it may be. It's just, dude, it is such a grind in my eyes. But if you have that day or on the calendar where you're like, man, this is what we're doing today. We're just cranking this all out, putting it in the hopper, and we'll roll it through as the season goes on. I think that's super great advice for any anglers looking to bolster their social media.
For sure. I mean, my best advice will be, get yourself a girlfriend or wife who really loves
really loves you, right?
Really loves editing videos, because that is the biggest blessing that I could ever imagine. I mean, it takes all the stress off of me for that, and I can just focus on fishing. And it's shown the last few years, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's super important to make sure you have the content. And for us, we're so busy with tournaments and we don't really have that many days off as it is, but that just adds that much more importance on scheduling those content days to be able to get it all and have it for when we need it.
Absolutely. Is there any like piece of content you enjoy making as opposed to like you do not like making?
No, I enjoy it. Everything bass fishing, I love, I love every part of it, So, I mean, I would say at first, when I first got into it, I was horrible behind the camera. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And then, like, I could be able to talk fine, but then I would turn the camera on and I would just start stuttering and just get nervous. And like, I mean, it just, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And, I've come to like enjoy it. And, I love helping people catch more fish. That, that's what like my YouTube channel is all about, is I want to help the viewers and the subscribers catch more bass. So like, I enjoy the teaching side of it and helping people catch more fish. And, I love hearing the feedback and the stories when people, comment on there and say that, this tip helped them catch more fish. Like, that's what it's all about to me. So I've really enjoyed that part of it.
Absolutely. So ready to move on to Santi and how you caught him there, because we know that you did not use forward facing.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So straight power fishing fest for you there. Besides slinging a blade, you were casting a different type of blade around. And you want to walk us through how you caught him there?
Yeah, let's go through the whole tournament. So we there's been a bunch of rain over that way, and Santee Cooper is 2 lakes. It's Marion and Moultrie. They're extremely muddy. I hate fishing muddy water, so that kind of like narrowed down my choices to begin with. And then we had extremely cold weather all throughout practice. So it was like 30 degrees in the morning and it's getting up to like a high of 50. So like the water temperature wasn't warming up much. It was in like the low to mid 50s. I would say it would start out around 49 or 50 every morning and get up to like 54, 55 by the end of the day, and then, drop back down at night. So, I was spending a lot of my time, my first day and a half of practice, I was spending in the upper lake in Marion. And a lot of the cover in there is shallow, like 2 foot or less, maybe 3 foot or less is where the bulk of the cover is. It's just cypress trees and eelgrass and stumps, stuff like that. And I just couldn't wrap my head around fishing in 3 foot of water in a 30-degree morning. So I just kind of scrapped all of that. And I couldn't really make sense of how the fish moved in Marion, because basically what I gather after the tournament is these fish live on these cypress trees. They pre-spawn there, they winter there, they spawn on the trees. Like, they just live on these cypress trees all year long. And I just couldn't understand that in practice. So I ended up running to the lower lake in Lake Moultrie. It's an area I found in pre-practice. I went over there in January and just kind of looked around a little bit. But I found an area that had, some spawning areas, and then outside the spawning areas had some hydrilla. So I knew like there's going to be some bass in there somewhere. So basically I went to that area and went all the way to the back, basically to where the bass would be spawning, and just started working my way out deeper until I found where the fish were in between. So I ended up stumbling into some areas with the hydrilla. There was a couple different, stretches of hydrilla, and say that 3 to 6 foot, 4 to 6 foot range is basically what I was keying on. And those fish were kind of moving into spawn. They're not far off spawning. I would say within the next week or two, they're going to be moving in there to spawn. And that's just where I kind of collided with them on my way working out deeper to find where those fish were staging. And I only got a handful of bites in practice, but that area had 5 or 6, 7 spots or little drains, creeks, pockets, whatever you want to call them, that all set up similar. And I just knew the bass were going to be in there somewhere. So I only got a handful of bites in practice, but I felt like if I went there and spent my whole tournament day in that area, I could fish around in there, be real thorough, and get a handful of bites and do well. And, it turned into the day one lead. So it was, it was a good decision looking back. But yeah, I basically fished that hydrilla, say 4 to 6 foot of water with a chatterbait and a couple different lipless baits. The Bill Lewis hammer trap was probably the most used one that caught a lot of key fish. So it was a lot of fun. It was good. It felt really good to not catch him on a jig head minnow. I caught them all on a bait caster, except one. My very last fish of the tournament, I caught on a wacky rig under a dock. But every fish up till that, I caught 100% on a bait caster, 15-pound line, and just got the power fish. I didn't see any of them eat on forward-facing sonar, so it was casting, 100, 150 feet away from the boat and just fishing that hydrilla. So that was cool to go old school, I guess. And
so
fish.
What is your old school trap setup then? Because everyone has like
the
varying opinions of like rod length.
Yeah.
Should it be a fast action, a moderate action? Like kind of walk us through like rod reel, line combo, what rod it is, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I really love throwing a trap. I probably consider that one of my strengths. Like I'm a little bit of a trap connoisseur. I got so many different kinds and colors and sounds and everything, and they all kind of excel in different situations. But the setup is really key. So I had all of them on the same setup. So there is the favorite Defender series. So it's a cheap rod. It's $100 rod. Anyone can, go get you a favorite Defender. It's $100 rod. I was throwing the 7'5" medium heavy. So it's a longer rod because I was, fishing open water. So I'm making really long casts with it. And I'm more of like a yo-yo or a stop and go retrieve on my trap. So I basically wind it as fast as I could, pop the rod tip, let that bait flutter up, and then pause it until it falls back down to that grass. And pretty much all the bites come on that fall. Like as soon as you stop it and that bait's falling back down, they thump it, and that's when you just kind of lean into them. So I needed that longer rod to basically sweep that rod tip up. And, it's labeled as a medium heavy, but I would classify it as more of like a medium heavy, moderate fast. It's not a super fast tip, so it's fairly moderate.
Belly.
Yeah, and it handles those treble hook baits well. It's not a very fast tip that you're going to snatch the treble hooks right out. So it's just enough tip that you could snap it out of the hydrilla, but soft enough that once you hook the fish, you could play them and you're not going to lose them. So I was really impressed with that rod for the traps this week. And, I had 4, 5, 6 different baits on the deck, all with the same rod and reel line. 15-pound Seaguar and Vizex is what I threw for all of them.
Love it.
Heck
so, yeah, that makes me excited. I want to go rip a trap
right
now.
It's been a while since I got on that bite, but man, it was a lot of fun because, and I didn't really realize it in practice, but as the tournament went on, I realized that there was like multiple fish in the same spot. So when I would get one to bite, generally it was, the next couple casts, like I was going to get another bite because it kind of got them fired up. So I pretty much started the tournament. I eased into this little patch of hydrilla where I had one bite in practice. I catch one on a chatterbait pretty quick. And then, I give out a few more casts, nothing. And then I pick up the hammer trap, and it was like 5 of the next 10 probably not even 10 casts, 5 of like the next 7 casts, I had a bite and hooked one. So like it was, once you found them and got them fired up, it was pretty wild. And then we kind of had the similar situation in the knockout round where I got a school fired up twice that day where I caught 3 in 3 casts. And then I was actually sitting outside the cut with, I was in 14th place with 3 minutes to go. And I eased back up onto this little spot, and I caught 2 scorables in the last 3 minutes and jumped into the top 10.
Oof, that's rapid fire.
Yeah, that was exciting. And it was, that's what the Major League Fishing format's all about. Going back to the Every Fish Counts format was literally for that reason right there. It was really cool and really exciting for the fans and everyone watching, and exciting for myself. I mean, I really, can't remember any time I've been in a tournament where my heart was racing. I was out of breath. Like I was sweating. I mean, it was a mess just because it was so intense, right there at the end, catching those couple fish to beat the buzzer. And, it's like any other sport, like kicking a game-winning field goal or whatever, just like the adrenaline rush of right at the buzzer to do that. It was pretty crazy.
And now you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but you cannot cast until the fish is weighed and like you agree on it, correct?
Correct. Correct. And I actually got a little slack from that from a couple of my buddies because so I needed 314 to get in the cut, and I catch one and it weighs 313.
Oh,
They're like, why don't you reweigh it and check? And I was like, it never even crossed my mind. Like I grabbed the fish, unclipped it, threw him over the side, and had another cast out in like 2 seconds from the time he said the weight. And it was that cast that I caught one. So it was like that thought never even crossed my mind. I was like, I just need to get back in there and catch another one. Because at this point I had like,
seconds,
2 minutes left. And they're like, man, you could have reweighed that and maybe got another ounce and would have moved in, but
or it could have stayed the same and you lost a minute.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, say I reweigh it twice, and I just wasted 30 seconds, and it stayed the same. So like, I trust the scales. I don't really believe that. I think if you're worried about rechecking the weights of the scale, you should just do what my hat says and just catch more bass, just catch another one. So that's kind of what I was thinking at the moment. But, a few of my buddies were like, dude, you should have reweighed that thing and, maybe we would have got an ounce. But I never even thought about it.
Hey,
I wonder if
there's
I wonder if there's like a statistic if someone out there smarter than all of us has ever taken watching the coverage of Major League Fishing and seen how many of those actually play out to where it actually is advantageous to weigh it a second time.
I mean, the only one that I can think of is Bobby Lane at Redcrest, where he won, on that reweigh right at the end of the day. But
and it was like a barely keeper too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It weighed 115, and then he reweighed it and it weighed 2 even, and that was the one that bumped him over the top with like 2 minutes to spare or something. So like that was a crazy experience, and I mean, I would say I have tried every time I get a fish that's 1 ounce below the minimum weight. If it's 2 pound minimum and I weigh a 115, yes, I'm going to try it again. But never have I, caught a scoreable bass that, weighed 313. Do I think, oh no, like let's try it again so I get a 314? Like, the only time that I've even thought about reweighing is if it's 1 ounce short of the minimum weight for that day. So. But, I see what they're saying is, I could have gained an ounce there or whatever, but
or lost a minute and not caught the next fish.
Yeah, exactly. You never know how it's going to play out, but that was a wild last period for sure.
Love it. So we know about your trap setup, but Matt Omer is asking, what is your chatterbait setup? Because you mentioned you're throwing a chatterbait as well.
Yep. So my chatterbait setup, it's actually the same length and action. So it's the favorite Hex 7'5" medium heavy, but the Hex model of rod is a little bit faster tip. It's a higher end rod. It's a $400 rod. So it's higher end graphite, more sensitive, and it's a faster tip. So I like a really high end fast tip rod for my chatterbaits because I want to feel every single turn of that blade. If it, there's a little tiny piece of grass on there, I want to feel it. I'm not a glass rod fan, so I'm on the 7'5" medium heavy Hex and 15 pound Invisex on that. I was just throwing a 3/8 jackhammer and then putting the 3-inch Yamamoto Seiko on there. So I really like the 3-inch Seiko rather than the 4-inch because it's a much smaller bait and it lets that chatterbait like hunt more. So whenever you twitch it, it darts side to side a lot more than the 4-inch Seiko just because that is not as much bulk on there kind of holding it back. So I always go with the 3-inch Seiko and, I think it was a spot remover color in the chatterbait with disco green trailer to match it.
Because that spot remover has a little bit of chartreuse in it as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Nice. It's kind of like a transparent chartreuse-ish looking color, and it showed up well in that little bit dirtier water down there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's Santi Cooper was fun.
Heck yeah, man. Power fishing, getting after it, pre-spawn, big ones rolling up. That's good stuff. That's the first time I've heard of the I'm a very similar as far as chatterbait, but I'm always have just kind of standard put on a 4-inch Seiko on the back and just never thought twice about it. But I like that idea. It's a little more compact as well. Maybe get you a couple more bites if you're pressured. and maybe you don't have as much float, right? Like I have a hard time throwing light chatterbaits just because I want it to be down and in the grass. And obviously that's kind of depth dependent, right? But I think, that's a unique take. I like that. I haven't heard that as far as a small trailer on a chatterbait. I'm gonna have to try that.
Yeah, for sure. And, it lets you throw a lighter bait. So like you could throw a 3/8 and get it a little bit deeper. And then, it's back to the same thing as with the Damiki rig. The lighter the weight of the jig head, the more action it's going to have and more hunting it's going to have. So, I always try and do that. And then, the bigger the trailer, the higher it's going to want to ride in the water column, the more drag you're going to have. So it's going to pull it up higher and it's not going to let it side to side hunt as much. So the 3-inch Seiko is money for that.
Now we're all going to be picking up 3-inch Seikos.
Yeah, I'm fine with not everyone knowing that. It's kind of
cat's out of the bag. I'm sorry, Matt.
Yeah, shucks.
Hopefully not too many of your competitors listen, right?
Yeah, so. I think everyone knows. Everyone has their own opinion on chatterbait trailers. That's one thing that, like, you could ask 10 different people and probably get 10 different answers on what they want with their chatterbait trailer. But hey, whatever works. I think it's just a fish catching bait.
100%.
It is, dude.
Yeah. So let's round it out here, right? Like Redcrest is coming up. That's probably the next tournament on your docket. It's your first one. I know you were at Norman, right? Last year working the expo. So you know what the expo's like.
Yeah.
How excited are you to be at Redcrest? And the big elephant in the room, right, is do you have your speech ready for the AOI speech? And does it go along the lines of kind of like, I'm glad somebody topped off Wheeler?
Yeah, nope. I've been piecing together. So like I was in the shower earlier and like it's like the most inopportune times where like I'll just come up with like blurts of what I want to say in this speech. And like I have no way to write this down and I'm definitely going to forget. But like it's been crossing my mind a little bit and just kind of taking some notes. I got to sit down and just like write it all. But that's something I'm dreading. Like I'm not a speech writer. I'm not a speech giver. Like I'm just a bass fisherman. So like I don't know what to say. You know,
just treat it like a podcast, right? Like you're sitting here, you're very fluent with your speech. I think you'll be all right.
Well, see, that's the thing is like I can spitball just fine. I can just talk about anything and get an idea and just roll with it. But like I have to sit down and like think it out and write it. Like that's why I didn't go to college and had trouble in high school. Like I can't do all this. This is like homework.
It's like Will Ferrell in Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, like what do I do here? But yeah, that's gonna be interesting. And I mean that's just it's very humbling, just to have a great season last year, and it's an honor to have to write the speech. So I'm excited about it for sure. I'm excited about Redcrest in general. Like you said, it's my first time fishing Redcrest, so I'm excited to be on that side of it. I've been to the last 2 Redcrests actually to work the expo, so now I get to see the other side of it and hopefully fish the whole time and not have to go to the show at all. But if we don't make the cut or whatever, we'll be there at the show hanging out with all the fans and working with the sponsors. But Lay Lake in middle of March, it should be pretty
down,
good.
I would think or assume, right? Like
without
getting into too much detail. So hopefully you can catch them the way you want to catch them and have a really good tournament. Do you anticipate it being like won any certain way?
Man, I really don't know. I pre-practiced there as well and just kind of rode around the lake a little bit. But to me, it seemed like it was a shallow water fishery. There wasn't a whole lot of cover out off the bank. It seemed like it was mostly bank oriented, docks and grass and that kind of stuff. So I could see it getting won without live scope. Just throwing a swim jig down the bank if we get the right weather. Or, if it's cold and nasty, I could see, spotted bass playing out in the middle of the lake. You really just never know. And I'm going to do a little bit of both, I think. But it's really going to come down to the current conditions, the weather conditions, the water color, water clarity, and current. So, that's on the Coosa River. so they can pull a bunch of current through there, and obviously that's going to group up fish and set them up different than if there's no current. So it's going to be very conditional, and I think it's going to take some adjustments over the week that we're there, but I'm excited, and I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah. I'm anticipating that being a fun event to watch. Because
are you guys coming?
I will not be there. I'm not sure about Deacon or Bailey. I haven't talked to them about it, but I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, I'm tied up during that week. I'll certainly be tuning in, but I know we did talk about it. I'm not sure Bailey may be there. I'm not sure, but we talked about it here this last couple of weeks. It's like,
yeah,
man, just a revolving
March
wheel
is
of
tough.
Oh, I know. It's a busy time of year, and then you got back to back with the Classic, and it's tough on everybody for sure.
Unfortunately, right? Like it's just the way the bass fishing world is now. It seems like there's a tournament every week, which it's awesome for the viewers, but it's got to be exhausting for the ones who are actually fishing and tuning in and driving and continually just going.
I know.
Oh,
That's what. Yeah, I was considering signing up for the Invitational this week, but it's just like a little bit of time off once in a while does a man good. Let me regroup on tackle and stuff, but I couldn't really sit still.
speech.
Well, I have to do that. But again, I couldn't sit still for too long. I signed up for a BFL this weekend on Dale Hollow, so I'm going to go fish that on Saturday, and then we got another few days off, and it's heading to Redcrest the following Saturday. So, just kind of get caught up on things around the house. I probably have to, do the dreaded tax season next week and get all that stuff squared up. Yeah, sorry to bring a negative topic in there.
The stress that the tax season has, I don't know, man. Like, it's brutal to me. Like, just it is just such a freaking. If you are self-employed or an independent contractor and anything that you do, it is like it's a whole absolute like. All right, I don't know how long this is going to take, but it's going to take forever to figure out.
It's funny. Like I feel like I've been piecemealing my taxes together since like the January 1st, and I'm still only like 25% done of everything I need to do. It's just,
yep, and then it makes you want to throw up when you're done. So
because usually you're writing a check, so it's like, dang it. Procrastinate.
I think I would rather light it on fire. I would at least get some enjoyment out of that, but.
You watch it burn.
Yeah. I mean, it's just giving it away. You don't know where it's going, what it's doing, but it is what it is. It's the country we live in.
Unfortunately.
It's true. I got one question for you, Matt. With the now that you've been there for a little while, the relocation to Tennessee in that region, what's your take on it, man? I mean, it's kind of something. I'm someone out west and have some friends that have moved back east, and look, I've always loved the idea and maybe fantasized a little bit about like, okay, where would be the best place in the country for tournament fishing? And it's like, I feel like right in that market, you're spot on with it, but how do you like living there?
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like living in Pittsburgh wasn't really conducive to bass fishing lifestyle. It was a little bit further out of the way to every tournament. So we basically looked at the general geographic center of most of the tournaments and kind of started looking in this area and stumbled into this. And man, I would say it's one of the best things I've ever done for my career. I got a shop now where I got all my fishing stuff in one place, where I, back the boat in, got everything I need right there, can work on tackle, get everything dialed in on that side of things. And then just the ease of driving. So like Santi Cooper, for instance, was just 6 hours down the road. Like that's an easy 1-day drive. Previously that would turn into a 2-day drive, and then the added expense of another hotel room and that kind of stuff. So like, and then not to mention just the extra time on the road and stress on your body instead of being at home. I mean, all of that stuff factors into it. So I love it. Not to mention fishing all year long and, never have to worry about the lakes being frozen or anything crazy like that. So I thought we moved here to get away from the snow, but then we got 10 inches of snow this year, but that was pretty rare. They said that hasn't happened in like 30 years. So hopefully we won't have to worry about that again. But yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. I love every minute of it, and looking forward to another summer here so I can learn some more about the lakes around here, because I haven't really got to fish much at home just because we're always gone so much. But I plan on learning some more this year.
There's a bunch of like little like sneak holes around there too that aren't really known to the public, right? Like smaller, like 10,000 acre lakes, etc.
So like within an hour and a half, I mean, there's endless lakes, but you start getting into like the northwest, south, or North Carolina, Georgia, northeast Georgia, like there's some sneaky mountain lakes over there that are really good that I want to mess around with. But then like the other side is like I live literally 4 minutes from a boat ramp on Watts Bar, so like I want to learn how to catch a bass in that lake too, because like I live here, and like you could bet me $100 to go out on Watts Bar right now, and I don't think I could catch a bass. Like I don't have a clue where to even start. So like I want to learn this lake just because it's so close, and then branch out. So it may take me a couple years before we find all the sneak holes around here, but there's definitely some sneaky ones up in those mountains for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just no, that part of the country to me is so cool. Clear water, just
you have everything.
Awesome fishing, right? I mean, yeah, so versatile. How did you decide where I mean, like Tennessee, right? Like there's a lot of different bodies of water right in that region, but why did you pick right next to Watts Bar versus Chattanooga, or going the other way? What was your take?
Yeah, well, we really started looking around, the Dayton or Saudi Daisy area. That was kind of like the center that we started looking, and they just kind of started expanding the radius from there. And we're basically right at the Watts Bar Dam, so we're only like 30 minutes from Dayton. So we're pretty close there. But just started looking for there was a few things we wanted. We wanted a little bit of land, and then obviously enough room to either have a garage or build a garage. And so those, there was some specific things that we were looking for in, the house we were looking for. So, just kind of started expanding the radius and ended up finding this one. So it was perfect timing, and it's been a perfect bass fishing house for sure.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, Matt, I think we're going to round it out here and let you get back to the more important things than hanging out with us. But we greatly appreciate you taking time here again on Tuesday night for joining us on Tuesday Night Live. It seems like you've been a frequent flyer here on the Serious Angler Show as of recently, and we greatly appreciate you taking the time. And I wish you the best of luck the rest of the year, safe travels, and go catch them up at Lay.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. Like I always say, I'm always down to talk some bass fishing. So that's all I do is eat, sleep, and breathe bass fishing. So if I'm not talking to you guys about it, I'm probably either in the garage doing something, or sitting on the couch looking at Navionics, or pretending I'm watching TV with Brittany. That's what she always says. I'm just, always looking at the maps instead of watching a TV show with her. But we're always doing something bass fishing. So anytime you guys need a guest or whatever, I'm always game to hop on and talk a little bit. So yeah, thanks for having me. And hopefully we can just keep this momentum rolling and keep reeling in some bass this year.
Absolutely. Go get yourself another big trophy this year.
Yeah, that would be cool.
We're rooting for you. So
thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Heck yeah, man. Tear it up.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you soon. All right, Adam. Awesome show tonight, right? Like, having Matt on, he's been on a lot lately, and I know you're not over here much with Bailey and I, but that was cool. Like,
oh yeah, man.
And to talk old school, right? Like power fishing. Sign me up.
Dude, that's the thing. Like, I don't know. I keep, like you mentioned at the beginning of the show, all this forward facing sonar talk. I think it'll always play and it'll always be a factor, but there's still going to be derbies where guys top 10 doing stuff that's not that way. And we're going to continue to see that. And I think that's something to keep in mind always. as anyone fishing in tournaments is like for him, right? That's something super comfortable.
Yeah.
Is throwing a chatterbait in grass. And that is something that you can't really utilize forward facing. You might be able to look and see the grass line. You might be able to see a patch over here, but it's not like you're targeting a specific fish. And that's something that can absolutely catch big ones, number one. And number two, put a lot of fish in the boat when it's right. So I don't know. To me, I just love to hear that in today's day and age in February, you know.
There's always like that. And I think we were talking about on fantasy fishing on Toledo. It's like, yeah, forward facing is exposing a new area of lake that basically like we just assumed was void of fish for so many years, right? Or we knew they were there, but nobody knew how to catch them efficiently. But like if a couple of these guys didn't tune into that and more guys went shallow, I'm sure you would have saw giant bags come from shallow somewhere on the lake. But why do it when you have this technology that makes something so efficient? And when you're fishing for 100 grand in a trophy and your livelihood, you better do what's most efficient.
Dead on.
So, like, I love it. I don't hate on forward facing sonar. I know you don't. I know Bailey doesn't. We just love catching fish, and that's what it comes down to. And seeing the old school ways of things going on, it just like gets me all giddy inside. Like I want to go to a Finger Lake right now and go rip a trap out of grass and lean on a few big
Mhm,
ones because it's about
mhm.
that time.
Dude,
So
yeah. I'm last minute trying to make work wise. I've got some stuff going on, but I'm trying to make Clear Lake work. And Clear Lake is absolutely the Toyota Series here in a week,
oh
literally.
geez.
Or I guess it'd be at the end of next week, but it is going off, right? Like it is old Clear Lake kind of going down. And you bet that I will absolutely have a trap on at Clear Lake and could see myself power fishing for some great big ones. So it's
Yeah.
got me fired up and trying to see what we can do.
But go do it, and hopefully you can fit it into that insanely busy schedule you have over there. So, you know,
Nothing to it, man. It's all
well,
right. Yeah, we'll see
that's
what we can
fair.
do.
Hey, you gotta take every inch you can, right? So, but Adam,
Mhm.
anything else you want to touch on before we close out the show here? I want to say thank you for joining me last minute as Bailey had some plans come up to where he couldn't do this. I think it was a really smooth and awesome show today, and I want to thank everyone also for tuning in that tuned in and asked some sweet questions. So,
Yeah, man. No, it was a great show. Happy to hop in and certainly enjoy talking the fishing stuff, right? Like I always bring up, we always have some fishing stuff on Business from the Bass Boat, but like to just dive into like the passion that we all have for this, it's a lot of fun. And to hear from
yeah,
one of the best out there right now,
yeah,
right? Like he
yeah,
is
on fire.
Matt is incredible as
Yeah,
far as his performance this last couple of years. So great to have Matt on, talk about it all. Just got me fired up to get after it here and continue to have fun watching him and his season and everything else.
absolutely. Well, I think we're going to close it up here. No game show tonight because we just poorly planned that, and I was not able to come up with a game show or find guests for it here in the last minute. So that one is on me. But we'll round it out here and stay tuned for the Lure Lab that will be coming out on Saturday morning. I'm not sure what the episode will be. I'm trying to find a guest and figure out what technique we're going to talk about, but what's coming up on Business from the Bass Boat as we round out here.
Yeah, we've got some cool stuff coming. One that we've been working on for a while is talking a little bit of Phoenix boats and rec lending cross
Nice.
up as far as a lending deal going on Phoenix boats specifically and exclusively with rec lending to get into a boat right now with high rates. It's a tough market, right, with a lot of that stuff. So looking forward to that one. That should be coming here in the next, hopefully this next week, but we'll see. It's going to certainly come in the next couple of weeks. And just, man, we've got some other ones in the hopper and working through some good stuff as we get ready to go to the classic and everything else. Bass fishing it's a hot time of the year. Everyone's thinking about it.
Oh, for sure. So, yeah, I'm excited. I actually have to book my flight still, but I'm looking forward to
Same.
the classic. So, and I know you might sneak down for a day, right?
Yeah, I'm running the plans as well with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure, man. No, and I guess for you, man, what do you have in the hopper being a lure lab, but also anything coming up serious angler wise? And what's your guide schedule like in
Oh
March?
gosh.
What does that
So
look like?
March, it's pretty much filled up now because of the classic that takes like a week out of things. But lots of steelhead, trying to figure out where I can get my boat in to get its service for the year, even though I probably don't have to. When I put it away, I only had like 27 hours on it since my last oil change and lower unit, but I'm going to flush it out anyways, just because it's spring. Want to make sure I start fresh. But coming in April, we'll be bass fishing a ton all the way until about August. I'm basically fully booked, besides like 4 or 5 days in April and 2 or 3 days in July. And we're talking like 6 days a week booked because I don't guide on Mondays. I'm home with my girls, my little girls. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's a good life.
it's great. Yeah, man.
So
Love it.
all right.
Love it.
But yeah, Lure Lab, bunch of stuff is in the hopper. It's just getting people scheduled, some finesse stuff coming, even some power fishing episodes. Is just finding time with pros, fishing tournaments literally every week, sometimes multiple tours on the same week, and finding the appropriate guests for the appropriate technique. So if anyone here listening still has any suggestions on what they'd like to see, send it over to the Lure Lab Instagram page, and same to the Serious Angler if you want to see something on the business from the bass boat side or the Serious Angler show. Never be afraid to slip us a DM because we're open to suggestions and bringing the best shows possible to our viewers.
No doubt about it.
So, yeah. Well, ready to wrap this up here?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to this week's Tuesday Night Live, and we will see you next time.